In 1990, Christopher astonishes all his teachers by finishing a test, one that took Einstein 3 days, in just a few hours. His older sister, Michelle, suggests he could start college early, but Christopher isn't sure if that's what he wants. As they're leaving school, a soldier spots the cartoon robot on Christopher's shirt and warns him that war is imminent. The robot is Cosmo, the hero of a popular cartoon show. But with rising anti-robot sentiment across the country, the show gets cancelled. Robots were originally developed by Walt Disney for theme parks in 1955 and later mass-produced, becoming the backbone of the global workforce. For years they served without problems, until they grew weary of labor and rebelled. Demanding rights, robots organized global protests under the leadership of a figure named Mr. Peanut. Diplomatic talks fail, and a war between humans and robots erupts. Anyone harboring a robot is labeled a traitor. The war goes poorly for humans. Sergeant John appears on television to explain why robots don't eat, sleep, or even blink. After 2 years of continual fighting and repeated losses, hope seems lost. That's when Ethan, the founder of Centray Technologies, invents the Neurocaster, a device that links human minds to drone bodies. This innovation allows humans to fight the robots on equal footing, and within 2 weeks, the war is won. Colonel Bradbury is hailed as the hero. Mr. Peanut signs a surrender treaty alongside President Clinton and Ethan, and over 6,000 Sometime later, Ethan releases a home version of the Neurocaster. This compact model lets users split their consciousness to simultaneously work and enjoy leisure. By 1994, Michelle is at home trying to remove her ankle monitor. She hides her tools when Ted enters, operating through a Neurocaster. He reprimands her and reminds her that while she's escaped every previous foster home, she won't escape this one. Michelle fires back, pointing to the stash of contraband he's hoarding, items illegally taken from the exclusion zone. Later, in class, Michelle encounters a teacher in a Neurocaster suit. All students are forced to wear helmets. When Michelle refuses, she's sent to the principal's office. The principal notices Michelle's file and assumes her family died in the war, but Michelle corrects her, it was a car crash. The principal offers neurotherapy, suggesting it can give Michelle a brief reprieve from her grief. Michelle then relives a memory of playing at the beach with her brother, comforting him through a panic attack. Still, she refuses the helmet and returns home. That night, Michelle dreams of the fatal car accident. She recalls waking up in a hospital with a doctor standing over her, but can't recall his face. Suddenly awakened by a noise outside, Michelle peers through the window and sees movement in the yard. Armed with a flashlight, she investigates and is startled by the reflection of an eye on a bottle before a table topples, frightening her back indoors. She tries to alert Ted, but is lost in his Neurocaster experience. When the intruder enters, Michelle hides under the bed. The intruder, revealed to be a robot, lifts the bed easily, staring at her with Cosmo's familiar face. Michelle flees to a corner, trying to communicate. Cosmo gestures to show he's looking for her. Though mute, he opens his head, prompting Michelle to fix his voice circuit, though it only allows a few pre-recorded lines. Cosmo grabs a photo of Michelle and Christopher, pointing between himself and the boy, suggesting they are the same person. Michelle doesn't believe it and snatches the picture away, causing Cosmo to fall into a shelf. The crash wakes Ted, who storms in, blames Michelle, and begins yelling. As they argue, he shoves her into Cosmo. Then Cosmo repeats a signature gesture Christopher used to make, convincing Michelle of the truth. Cosmo shoves Ted into the wall. Enraged, Ted grabs a golf club, but Cosmo quickly breaks it and pushes him again, this time drawing blood. Ted rushes to call 911, but Michelle tarses him until he's unconscious. She and Cosmo flee using Ted's car. Cosmo easily removes her ankle monitor. Though Michelle doesn't know how to drive, she improvises. Ted gives chase using his Neurocaster, but the car shakes him off and they escape. By morning, their car breaks down with a flat tire. The spare is broken too. Frustrated, Michelle pesters Cosmo for answers. He communicates that Christopher is alive and controlling him remotely. When she asks how to find her brother, Cosmo points to a Centray Technologies billboard. Using a can of Dr. Pepper and more gestures, he refers to a doctor with glasses. This triggers a memory. Michelle now recalls waking up after the crash and seeing Dr. Amherst, who told her Christopher had died in the hospital. Pulling out a map, Michelle shows it to Cosmo, who points to a specific location deep within the exclusion zone. To break into such a dangerous area, they need a solid plan. Michelle recalls all the illegal items Ted used to buy. In the car's trunk, they find a box with a sender's P.O. box address in New Mexico. Hoping the sender might know a way into the exclusion zone, they decide to track them down. The pair hitches a ride on a train for part of the journey, then continues the rest on foot. As evening falls, Michelle stops at a store for food. When she comes out, she spots a truck approaching and quickly pulls Cosmo into an alley to hide. The driver turns out to be John. He opens the very P.O. box they were looking for and retrieves a stash of cash. Soon after, a man arrives using a Neurocaster and buys a gun from John. However, the buyer suddenly turns the weapon on John, only to be zapped by an electric shock that disables his Neurocaster. The shot came from Herman, John's robot partner, who helps him move the unconscious body while talking about salvaging its parts. While they're distracted, Michelle and Cosmo sneak into the back of the truck. Meanwhile, Bradbury discovers Ted's abandoned car. The next day, the truck reaches an old mine near the exclusion zone. John and Herman unload their latest finds, unaware that Michelle and Cosmo are hidden inside a box. As John and Herman argue over missing cables, Michelle tries to sneak around, but Cosmo accidentally triggers a singing fish decoration, exposing their location. John and Herman surround them, and Michelle quickly explains she just wants a guide into the exclusion zone. John assumes she's out of her mind. Suddenly, the elevator activates, and John concludes someone must have followed them. The group hides. When the elevator returns, it reveals Bradbury. He declares the area is now under Robot Deactivation Task Force control and orders John and Michelle to come out with their hands up. John tries to pass Michelle off as his sister, but Bradbury recognizes her and declares she's under arrest. Herman attempts to shoot Bradbury with an electric beam, but Bradbury spots him and uses John as a shield. Gunfire erupts, tearing through the room as everyone scrambles to take cover. When Bradbury corners the robots, Michelle emerges and hits his arm with a fire extinguisher, but he grabs it and smashes it. As smoke fills the room, Michelle claps to shut off the lights. The singing fish decorations activate again, momentarily distracting Bradbury, allowing John to shoot him from behind. However, the bullets have no effect on Bradbury's Neurocaster body, and he quickly crushes John's weapon before lifting him by the neck. To save John, Michelle and Cosmo surrender. Bradbury tosses John aside and approaches them, explaining that Cosmo is listed for deactivation. Just then, Herman drops a massive crane claw on Bradbury, trapping him. The group jumps into a mining cart to escape, but John struggles to find the right key, giving Bradbury time to recover. He fires at the cart, causing it to crash, and then targets Cosmo. Herman disarms him again, and the two robots begin to fight. Michelle finds a bulldozer and pins Bradbury against the wall, triggering a rock slide that buries him. With the mine collapsing, the group rushes to escape. Watching his hideout crumble, John screams in frustration and blames Michelle for the destruction. Strange sounds interrupt him, and the group hides in a cave, where they watch scavenger robots scouring the area for parts. When John sees an opening, he sneaks out and destroys one of the scavengers. He then heads to his garage, where he keeps a van and a large exosuit for Herman to wear. After heated arguments, Michelle manages to convince John to help her. Moments later, Michelle, John, and Cosmo are in the van, which is being carried by Herman in the suit. They enter the exclusion zone, where Michelle sees scattered wreckage of robots. During the ride, John shares the story of how he met Herman. During the war, John's unit lost a battle and was surrounded. The robots were supposed to execute the soldiers, but Herman saw John crying and spared him. A few days later, Sentry drones found them. When John tried to explain Herman was different, the drones wouldn't listen, so they fled together to survive. Meanwhile, Ethan is inside his Neurocaster, reliving a memory with his late mother. The device malfunctions, forcing him to shut it off. Frustrated, he berates his scientists and demands answers about the company's systems. They inform him that Christopher has escaped. If they don't find him by Friday, the entire company will fall apart. In a virtual meeting, a desperate Ethan contacts Bradbury. He knows Cosmo is on Bradbury's deactivation list and proposes a deal. Instead of turning Cosmo over to the authorities, bring him to Sentry Technologies. Back at the mine, Bradbury's Neurocaster reactivates. Out in the desert, the group debates entering an abandoned mall to search for food. A robot spots them and hurls a refrigerator, shattering the van's windshield. Herman tries to run, but the robot keeps attacking, eventually causing the van to flip upside down. They're quickly surrounded by hostile robots and taken into the mall. Inside, they discover an entire robot society, everything from entertainment bots to regular household appliances. A massive robot even peers at them through the window from outside. Mr. Peanut arrives and apologizes for their capture, explaining that the robots mistook them for dangerous scavengers. When Michelle explains her situation, Peanut mentions that Dr. Amherst once visited this place. He holds a PhD in human-machine interaction. However, Peanut quickly kicked him out, so he doesn't know where the doctor is now. Michelle wants to continue her search, but John warns her how risky it is to travel at night, convincing her to wait until morning. Later, alone, Michelle reflects on her last Christmas with Christopher and how rarely she saw him after he left for college. Overcome with emotion, she begins to cry, and Cosmo comforts her before playing the cartoon the siblings used to watch together. Soon, a crowd of robots joins the impromptu watch party, which catches Peanut's attention. After everyone falls asleep, they're awakened by a male robot asking for Christopher. Cosmo raises his hand, and the robot delivers a postcard left by Amherst. The card includes an address and a message saying Amherst will be waiting there. Since the location is within scavenger territory, entering it without a plan isn't an option. Peanut, who overhears the discussion, introduces them to a malfunctioning training robot that attempts to explain how to fight scavengers. Though John doubts its usefulness, he's impressed when the robot starts firing high-speed baseballs. Meanwhile, Bradbury reaches the exclusion zone and watches the mall from a distance, noticing the group departing in Peanut's car. They drive all day and finally arrive at night to an abandoned amusement park, the location on the postcard. Michelle sees lights inside one of the attractions and assumes someone must be nearby. Suddenly, a massive clown head activates, and creepy robots begin emerging from the shadows. The group immediately takes off, shooting at any robot that gets too close. Peanut tries to communicate, but the enemy bots respond only with eerie growls. They reach the building with lights, only to discover the doors are fake. With the robots closing in, panic sets in, until more lights flash on around the park. Music blares from the speakers, and flames shoot from a few statues. The attackers back away in fear just as a trap door opens beneath the group, dropping them into a hidden tunnel. In the underground room, they finally meet Amherst, who lights up when he sees the postcard in Cosmo's hand. Michelle immediately shoves him, demanding answers about Christopher. Amherst explains that the boy is being held at Center's labs in Seattle. After an accident, Christopher was put through routine scans, and the MRI flagged him as special. That made him a critical asset in the war effort, so Amherst allowed Centre to take him and lied to Michelle about his death. Amherst activates a computer to show a video of the experiment. Christopher had fallen into a coma, believed to be permanent, so they connected his brain to the Neurocaster network to keep it functioning. Amherst admits he's not proud of the choice but believes it was necessary to save the world, insisting Christopher would have died otherwise. 13 months after the experiment began, Christopher woke up. Amherst wanted to disconnect him, but Ethan refused and threatened to kill him if he tried. So Amherst ran away, but before he did, he left a small connection in place so Christopher could access the outside world, and he shared the mall's location, hoping Christopher might find a new family among the robots. Michelle, heartbroken, says Christopher already had a family. John, enraged, punches Amherst. Just then, Bradbury arrives, blasts open the tunnel entrance and slides down, entering the now empty room. The lights suddenly go out and Peanut ambushes Bradbury, slamming him into an electrical grid. Bradbury's Neurocaster shorts out briefly, causing him to drop his weapon. He manages to throw Peanut off and regains control. A fight breaks out. Peanut draws a hidden sword from his cane, but Bradbury proves too strong and overpowers him. Meanwhile, the rest of the group tries to sneak out but stops when they hear a noise. Dozens of soldier Neurocasters descend and surround them, demanding they surrender. The training robot springs into action, firing baseballs with such force that he manages to shatter some of their helmets. Ethan watches through surveillance and orders the soldiers to retrieve Cosmo, authorizing deadly force if needed. Cosmo tosses a ball to distract one of the soldiers, giving Michelle the chance to shoot paint at him. The paint gums up his propeller, causing him to crash into the ceiling. When a second soldier tries to seize her, Amherst shoots him down and tells them he knows an escape route. John and the other robots continue battling the rest of the squad, using whatever makeshift weapons they can find. Back in the tunnel, Bradbury rips off Peanut's hat and accuses him of breaking the treaty, blaming him for whatever happens to his family. At the same time, more soldiers storm the mall. Bradbury surfaces and begins firing wildly at the park's attractions. Amherst tells the others to flee before stepping out to confront Bradbury himself. He dares Bradbury to shoot, but Bradbury hesitates to kill a human. That's when Ethan, taking control of a Neurocaster, shoots Amherst instead. The doctor stumbles onto debris and dies when a metal bar impales him. The moment leaves Bradbury shaken, now forced to question his own morality. Michelle and Cosmo try to escape, but soldiers quickly surround them. One pins Michelle down while another grabs Cosmo and flies off. Bradbury shoots the Neurocaster restraining Michelle and tells her to go home before taking off after them. The next morning, the group returns to the mall and finds it destroyed, with most of the robots wiped out. Meanwhile, Cosmo is brought to the Centre labs, where he's reunited with Christopher's body. As Ethan links him to the system, Bradbury realizes he was misled. Cosmo isn't just a robot, and he's furious he was sent to hunt a child. Ethan defends his actions, saying that sacrifice is part of progress and that this boy helped win the war. Back at the mall, John encourages Michelle not to give up and promises to stand by her if she decides to keep fighting. Michelle checks Amherst's computer and confirms it holds both the codes to exit the exclusion zone and the location of the Seattle lab. It also reveals that disconnecting Christopher will shut down the entire Neurocaster network and take the company with it. Just then, Peanut returns and reminds her that he signed a treaty for peace. But Michelle challenges him. After the mall attack, the treaty is meaningless. With a fleet of abandoned trucks, Michelle, John, and the surviving robots leave the desert and head towards Seattle. Along the way, Herman finds a new giant suit and uses it to start hurling debris at the Centre labs, smashing their windows. Ethan immediately dispatches his army of soldiers. Herman and John sprint away, drawing the enemies out and creating a path for Michelle and the computer to sneak inside. As the troops chase them, John opens fire and Herman crushes them with massive punches. One soldier self-destructs, damaging Herman's suit, but he reveals another, smaller suit inside and saves John so they can keep running. Once the soldiers are far enough, the other robots join the battle too, something Bradbury watches unfold on the security feeds. Furious, Ethan heads to his office, dons a hidden helmet, and assumes control of a powerful special Neurocaster. He enters the fight himself, effortlessly dismantling the robot forces. Inside the lab, Amherst's computer pretends to be a deranged bot, scaring away the scientists. Michelle locates her brother and confirms he's still alive, but she'll need a Neurocaster to speak with him. Outside, Bradbury approaches Peanut and tells him where Ethan is hiding, admitting he's finally met someone less human than a machine. Then, Bradbury disconnects his Neurocaster, leaving the war behind. Michelle puts on the helmet and finds herself inside a memory, her last Christmas with Christopher. She tells him she wants to save him, but Christopher explains that his body is too weak. Connecting him would be fatal, but he no longer wants to live like this. He asks her to do it anyway. Meanwhile, Ethan destroys Herman's final suit. The little guy is injured, and John rushes to help, but it's already too late. At that moment, Peanut confronts Ethan and says he wants to renegotiate the treaty. In the lab, Michelle hesitates. She doesn't want to lose Christopher again. But he insists there's no future for him and urges her to think of the people who still need help. Through tears, Michelle says goodbye and disconnects her brother. Every neurocaster shuts down instantly, and the robots erupt in celebration. John, however, mourns Herman until Herman's head opens, revealing a tiny robot inside. The world descends into chaos as all computer systems fail. News outlets expose Center's use of a human child in experiments. Ethan is arrested, and people begin calling for the exclusion zone to be dismantled. Out in the desert, John and the other robots help Michelle record a video encouraging the public to take off their helmets and start enjoying the real world again. Meanwhile, Cosmo is dumped into the trash, but then his head twitches. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.